Well, hello everyone, and thank you for joining us again for another episode of Leading on Mondays. My name is Florin Madalina, and I'm so delighted to be with you today. And I should be joined by my friend and teaching partner, Madalina Ionescu, but I think she has a connection problem, so I'm going to start this by myself, and hopefully Madalina will jump back in. So today, we're going to look at some keys that I have found has helped me and the clients that I work in offering better feedback, in helping their teams with feedback. So what I'm doing here is, I'm going to share with you something that I shared with the participant at a workshop last week. So I was hosting an event like this last week at 𝘧𝘦𝘬𝘭 by 𝘧𝘦𝘬𝘭 in Gothenburg. And I see Madalina is back. All right, Madalina. Are you with us now?
Yeah.
Oops. I still don't hear you well. I think you froze again. Well, I'm gonna keep going, and I'm gonna allow you the time to connect. And if you have still connections problems, I'm gonna just go through the content we prepared. But what I was sharing is that this is something I shared in a in-person event last week, and we had, I think it was 25 people joining us to that in-person event in Gothenburg. But what I want to share here is just kind of a top of the waves, right? A high-level view of what I shared there, because I don't have at my command the time to go through all of these 4 steps, 4 keys in detail. But what I can do is actually I can share, the top of the waves for you. So okay, so let's dive in. So the first thing here is, like, maybe you're asking yourself, why is feedback important? And let me read to you some statistics. So first of all, we know that feedback allows us to get better, allows us to get input into what we're doing and see the things that we cannot see ourselves, right? When I started my leadership career, I shared with you in one of the previous episodes that I was giving orders, and I was expecting people to follow my order. That was my view of leadership. And the reason is because I was brought up that way. I had a strong leader in my house. My mom was leading a clothing industry, a clothing factory in the clothing industry, and actually she was running a tight ship at home and also in her work. So you had to do what she told you to do. When I then joined the workforce, the first job I had was in an assembly line for engines. That's not the place where you get a lot of feedback. We were telling people what to do, and they had very specific tasks they should be doing for the line to work with the cadency that it needs, so that for the final product to be built. So in that kind of environment, I didn't have a lot of role models in my life to follow, which were really good at feedback. So I was really directing. So was my feedback. So I was giving very direct feedback without really thinking about, if this is hurting people's feeling, how they perceive it. And I was really bad at reading body language. And we know that 93% of communication is not in the words we say. It's actually in the body language and the tone of voice, and what people actually, see and get from us is not only the words. It's actually just 7% is the words. So what I'm saying here is that I didn't know all of these things when I started. I didn't know them. I just knew that my way was not working. So I was trying to figure out what works. And that's when I got introduced to coaching, and I learned about John Maxwell and got certified. And that's when I started to ask better questions and then get better feedback, because I was more focused on the person rather than what I wanted. So let's see if we have Madalina back. Shall we try again, Madalina? Let's
Hey,
see.
everybody. Yeah.
All
So my
right.
internet is messing with me today.
No worries. We have you now. So I was just giving people an update and an introduction to what we're going to discuss. And I just got to kind of the first thing that we want to share with them, like why is feedback important, right? So let me read some statistics for us, right? Because I have them in front of me. I don't want to. So this is by a source that I can share also in the links if you're interested in going deeper. But feedback, we said, is not only that it's important for us to get better, but it's also what people want. Statistics say that 65% of employees say they want more feedback. 1 in 5 of them are unsatisfied with the frequency of feedback from their direct manager. And almost 30% wish they had more peer feedback. So in other words, I think there is a lot of space for us to get better at feedback, isn't it, Madalina?
Yeah, actually, I like these statistics because it makes me realize what is the reality for this, for the feedback. And yeah, now that you mentioned related to the peer feedback, it's also important not only for the managers to give feedback and ask feedback, but also for people between them, the peers should give each other feedback. And that brings me to one topic that is very, very important when we discuss about feedback. People don't know how to give the proper feedback.
Yeah.
Because people think of feedback, and I'm pretty sure most of us also, including me, I thought that feedback was actually criticism. So whenever I heard of the word feedback, I was ready to say, okay, come on, hit me with the negative stuff,
Yeah.
which is not the right one. So, what do you think is actually a proper feedback? What are the characteristics of a proper feedback?
Yeah, I think there are a few of them, and what you just mentioned there is also very important because many times we tend to identify ourselves with the situation or the the whatever feedback is referring to. If feedback is referring to a situation, then and someone says, well, in that situation we could have done better. If you're the leader of the project, the team, you kind of take it personal. I mean, you mean that I should have done better, right? Uh, that's one of the challenges. We identify ourselves with the situation. So one of the key is to separate the person from the practice. Like, you didn't fail, but what we tried to do failed. The project failed, not Madalina or Florin, because that
Yeah.
way it's less critical, right? It's less direct. So we really have to, be mindful of that people identify themselves with this situation. But when I look at feedback, there are four keys, and we promise to go to these four keys. I don't have at my command the time to go in deep through them, but I promise to share of them. Right. So first key is to know that there is an appropriate time and there's a frequency for feedback. Right. So what we say is, when is the best time to offer feedback? I have a situation. So you're a project leader, right? And you're responsible for some deliveries, and one of your team members on your project are late with the deliveries, of their side of the project. And so what do you
Mhm.
do? Do you step in, do their work and make sure that you deliver for the project and say, well, I'm going to take this with them sometimes else, like later, because I don't have the time right now to, get to them and kind of have them understand what do we need to improve. Let me do it myself and then I move on. B, like, you
Mhm.
take the time, you improve that, and you still say, well, I'm going to take that in the project retrospective. We have that in a couple of weeks, so I'm going to take that with them there. And three, you actually take the time, you discuss with your project stakeholders to gain a little bit more time, and you go discuss with the person, discuss with them, see what's needed to be
Mhm.
done. Even it will have been easier for you to do it, but you still want for the person to kind of know what should have done better. Which one would you go for?
Oh, definitely see.
Yeah, exactly. But many times we feel it's easier for some personality types, for some leaders, it's easier to do it themselves rather than give that kind of feedback. If you are more conflict avoidant, then you probably don't want to have that conversation with someone. They say,
Yeah.
what do you mean? I'm delivering this. I mean, right? So you don't want to go there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what we say, it's appropriate time, right? The appropriate time, it's exactly when it happens. Why?
Yeah.
Because
Definitely.
the longer it passes between the time when things happen and when you bring them up, the least effective the feedback. Think about, maybe you have been in this situation, and I know I have been, when my wife has reminded me of something that happened 2 months ago. When we meet with these people like 2 months ago, what you did there and how you said that hurt me. And I said, wait a minute, 2 months ago? I don't even remember what I said. Oh, you don't even remember what you said. And so
Yeah.
that, that kind,
The difficult thing.
right?
Yeah.
So how can I improve on that? It was something that I've done 2 months ago. I don't even remember in which situation. Probably was not. I was not aware of doing that. It was not important to me because otherwise I would have remembered it. And now, if you bring it up now, or in the project retrospective, or in whatever amount of time has already passed, then it loses the value, right? So there is an
Yeah.
appropriate time when we offer it, but there's also frequency because we have found there is two types of feedback. It's impromptu feedback in the moment when things happen, and there is
Mhm.
also regular feedback where you know that you need to speak with your people at least every second week or ideally every third week, and kind of just make sure that you're on the same page, that you don't have to call these like feedback meetings, right? But you have one-on-ones, and make sure that in those one-on-ones you give some feedback to people. So that will be kind of the
Mhm.
key number one that I will actually advise people, and we covered this in detail last week, is make sure that you offer feedback when the situation is still fresh, but also that you have regular
Right.
meetings to discuss and adjust.
Wow. I just have one more thing here because you said
Sure.
about the timing. The timing should be the right time to give the feedback. But I noticed something else among people, including me, including you, I guess, that maybe the second later to give feedback is not the perfect moment, because usually we are in the realm of feelings, emotions, everything is exaggerated, everything is not in the right objective way. So I suggest in this situation, and also including myself, I did this. I didn't give the feedback right away. I wait a little bit just to calm down, because when you give the feedback right away, it will it will be more I don't know in English, it will be harmful to people because you
Yeah,
just try to
you
say
risk being,
what
yeah, emotional and in the heat of the moment. So let's
the
let's
heat of
let's
the
look at an
moment.
example. I have an example for that. So let's
Oh,
let,
okay,
let,
bring
let's
it
see
on.
what. Okay, I didn't plan to do this now, but let's do it. So I'm going to read this for you, right? Okay.
Okay, good.
So it goes like this. You're a team leader, and two of your team members argue at one of your team meetings about an unsettled issue. What do you do? A. You take a stance, letting everyone know that this is not an acceptable behavior, and you let know them that you're gonna take with them separately. B. You change topics, pointing that at the agenda and reminding everyone that this is not the right forum for this kind of topics, thinking that you're going to take this with them later or in the regular one-on-one discussions. And C, you let them expose their arguments, hoping that someone on the team will step in and mediate the situation, and you feel that they're mature enough to solve this by themselves. What do you do?
Oh, it's a tricky question. I would go with A.
Yeah, why would you go with A?
Well, maybe it's my personality, but from experience, I noticed that if you're not addressing the issue, but not the person, the people, just the issue. If you're not addressing the issue to everybody involved, then you will be able to. Well, you will need to talk to each person individually, which is a lot of time, and not everybody is aware and be set on the same page. So
Yeah,
in this
absolutely
situation,
right.
this is how I would do. I would just address the issue and then discuss, okay, this is not just something that it's better to happen, but we will discuss on one-on-one afterwards. But this is the situation at the moment. So it's not me
Yeah.
pointing fingers, but just addressing the issue.
Yeah. So you actually offer some feedback in the heat of the moment where you say, okay, this is not an appropriate behavior, right? That needs to be happening. Because otherwise, if you just shift topics without letting people know that this is not acceptable, right? We're missing that learning moment, right? So that's why I'm saying
First,
you,
yeah,
you
yeah, yeah, because you will encourage people say, okay, this is maybe the people would think this is not a proper behavior, but if nobody is saying anything or the leader doesn't say anything, they will think that this is a proper behavior, and guess what? Next time will happen the same. So
exactly.
instead of waiting for everybody to be aligned on the same page, then it's just this is not an appropriate behavior. we need to go on into the next topics, but this will be addressed later in a one-on-one meeting.
Yes. So
So
you
I
give
think this
some.
is, yeah, we have a
Yeah,
comment
that's
here.
why.
Yes.
Yeah. So what I didn't went into the details, but I think in the impromptu or in the moment feedback, there is also two types, right? You know, what we call hot, right? In the moment, like this kind of say, okay, Madalina, Florin, this is not an acceptable behavior, right? These kind of topics should not be discussed here, right? And I'm gonna discuss this with you one-on-one. And that's it. You don't go any deeper,
Yeah.
but you address that and you give feedback to everyone in the room that this is not acceptable. Otherwise, they might believe this is acceptable. Or the feedback that they get is, oh, Florin is not able to handle this situation. What if this is going to happen between two of our clients? What he's going to do then? I don't trust Florin enough to handle this situation if he's not able to handle this, right? So
The proper way at work, yeah.
exactly. So there is value in offering, you know, right then and there some feedback about this situation, and then let things cool down. Maybe 1 or 2 days later, after people have slept on it, then you have you know, another session, another discussion about it, right? So you're right. Maybe in the moment we have to be very careful what we say, and because sometimes we might hurt people, and we are emotionally, everyone is involved and it's emotional. So you're right, but I will add this caveat here, right? So we have to still say this is not acceptable, and then discuss it while the situation is still fresh, right? But we have had the chance to cool down.
Yeah. And the emotions will be.
Yeah. Does it make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. And I'm happy that we also have engagement in the chat. Nice.
Right on.
So you said about the first key, right? The first key for offering personalized feedback. But what about the second? The second.
Yeah. So this is actually when we make feedback relevant, and also when we try to separate the person from the you know, from what happening, from the being, from the behavior. And I think the best way for us to do that, so when it comes to feedback being relevant, is I share some ways of offering feedback. So let me read some of these with you, because I have them in front of me. So for example, someone would say, well, you know, Madalina, you should be more proactive. What do you do with that?
Definitely, I will ask more questions.
Exactly. About what?
Does it mean
when?
Proactive? When? In what exactly? So I need more details on that one. Because
you need to become a better leader. Sorry. Say that again.
The same. It's okay, why are you saying this to me? I need to become a better leader, but I know what I need to do. Why are you saying to me that I need to become a better leader? What are your arguments for that? Yeah.
So these are
that will be very general.
Yeah.
I said I wanted to say that this is I think I'm losing the internet again, because I'm
there is some
delay maybe.
Yeah.
I think it's a delay. Okay, sorry for that. So go ahead, Florin. I will let you.
Yeah. So another example is you should improve your communication, or you have to watch your attitude. And what we're saying, these are not contextual enough. These are not relevant enough for people to be able to improve on them. Like you just mentioned, the first thing that came to your mind was, okay, so what do you mean by that? In which situation should I improve my proactiveness? How should I become a better leader? In which areas? What makes you say that? So all of these things are not relevant enough, right, for people to act on them. So how can we do this? Let's add some relevancy to this. Here is how this will look like. For example, instead of you saying you should be more proactive, you say, well, you should be more proactive in asking for updates when you see a delivery is getting late, right? Much better, right? Or you should
much better, yes.
You need to become better at including your team in problem solving and decision making, which brings you to areas already of your leadership, and again, including your team, right? So this helps us to make it much more relevant to the person, and actually, so they identify, okay, so this is the situation that you're referring to, and how can I improve is looking at that situation. Does it make sense?
It makes sense, yes. So
Yeah.
I often found myself in the situation to provide feedback or general feedback. I'm actually thinking I provide general feedback, or I relate to the person instead of the behavior. But this is more aspect, not in the professional aspect, because when you are in a professional environment, you usually are more aware of how to give feedback to people. And this goes better, exactly as you mentioned, to give it on time, to give it in a proper way, to relate to the action, to the behavior, not to the person. But let us know about the third key, because I'm pretty sure that this is an important one. I
Yeah.
can guess, because we are talking about timing, we are talking about behavior, but what is the third key?
Yeah, so here is where it's important for us to structure it well. What I mean by structure it well, and also make it two-way, right? So we offer, but we also ask for feedback. So when it comes to structure it, the challenge with feedback is if it's not related to a specific situation, as we discussed, but it's not related to a goal, right? So for example, whenever you give feedback to someone, what they will do, they use that feedback to adjust their action, but they were always compared to a goal or to an objective or to an outcome. So for example, right, if my outcome or my objective is to, to reach a certain goal, or to maybe to be, a better leader, right? I need to know where I'm standing. So when I'm getting feedback, I'm going to compare, okay, so if my goal is to be here and Madalina is telling this to me, then it must mean that I'm not there, or that I'm behind my goal, or that so whatever we're offering as feedback, people use it to adjust their behavior, but adjust their behavior compared to the goal. In the same way, when someone gets, well, you're really good, like, and you're on the way, like, you're killing it, also tells people, oh, I'm maybe ahead of my game, so I could slow down, actually. Right? So
That's the negative part of it.
that's the risk, right? Yeah, and so what happens is that if we do not make it specific, right? If we do not structure it very well, then it's gonna be, not as effective, because people compare themselves to a goal. So two requirements for really good feedback is, first of all, to have agreed on the goals, and then to have set expectation upfront. So the only way for me to offer you feedback, if we have discussed already and set the expectations, so Madalina, this is what is expected of you in the next 90 days, then that allows me to offer you feedback. But if I have not spent the time to set the expectations, how can I offer you feedback on something that you don't even know it's expected of you?
I also found myself in the situation where exactly as you mentioned, if it's not related to my goal or my objective, the feedback will just come through here and then live through here because it's not going to stick with me as, okay, it's your opinion, it's a feedback. I will try my best next time not to do the same thing, but I won't be as willing to do it as I should or I would like to, because it's not part of my objective.
Exactly. And because you didn't have the conversation before where you agreed that this is the objective, and this is what you're going to deliver, and now it's about where you are now compared to the objective. That's what we're doing. When we get feedback, we compare it with something, and if no one sets the standard for ourselves, we set it ourselves. So sometimes I might have a higher standard than my manager, or I might have a lower standard than my manager, but how can I compare with mine if we have not aligned our standards, right? So So when we talk about structure it well, we make sure that we have a structure where we set the goal, so then the feedback it's effective and talks about a goal we have set, right?
Yeah, but this is one thing that I would like to mention here, because you're talking about the person's goal or objective, and you as a leader should know or should be aware of what is the goal of the person you're talking to or you're giving the feedback to. Because then, if you don't know, you will be into two different directions. You, as a leader, would like to do something and you're giving the feedback to the employee, but the employee just listens to you and that's it. It doesn't apply this new behavior. Because, and I think this is the key part, this is the fourth part that you would like to say, because there is something missing for the feedback to be actually heard and applied to the person you're talking to, right? So what is
Absolutely,
the
yeah.
fourth?
Yeah, so that's when we go into key number four, where you really make it personal, and personal, not personal like in a way that you get too personal into personal details, but personalized. In other words, you know that this is an important area for Madalina. For example, this is one of her strengths, and she wants to improve in this area. So if this is one of her strengths and she wants to improve there, then I'm able to use that in a way and say, hey, Madalina, I know this is important for you. I know you want to get more opportunities in these areas, right? And you improving on this and this and this will allow you to get those opportunities. Compared to someone that maybe is working, outside of their strength areas, they do this because it's needed. This is not something that they want to improve on or do for longer, and say, hey, Madalina, I know this is not your strength areas, but I know that this is something we need of you right now. And I know that, we're not going to ask for you to be perfect in this area, but let's do this for this project, knowing that we're going to move forward and we're going to offer you opportunities in the areas you want to improve. You see, very different kind of feedback
Yeah,
compared to where the person is. If
yeah,
if someone goes through, something personal, right? Because there's a couple of keys. Number one is you want to know what's going behind the scenes. So in other words, what is the real cause of Madalina's behavior or Madalina's result? Is she going through something personally? Is she maybe affected by something that I don't know? And is that a more permanent situation, or is a one time, or did she had any challenges right now with this project, but usually she delivers really good work? So all this is context, right? And it's impossible for us to offer feedback personalized without having all that, taking that into account. So what she's going through, what's behind the scene, right? um, is this a strength area that she wants to improve in these areas or not, right? Is this the objective that we had, agreed? Because you mentioned the leader needs to know what the objective of the person are, but are the leader and the person on the same page? If we ask them separately, would they say this is the objectives and the priority should be this way? Sometimes we realize that people have different pictures.
yeah. That's
So
the tricky
without,
part for the leader to do, to find what is the big picture in the other's point of view.
yeah. And one last thing will be to really know what motivates Madalina, right? Because if you try to motivate Madalina or Florin with the wrong tools, right?
Oh, yeah, the feedback is useless then.
Yeah, exactly. Because I mean, if you tell Madalina, if you do this and you improve on this, you're gonna have more opportunities to develop and get bigger roles. And she says, well, I just got a child right now, and I'm not interested to get in bigger roles. I actually want to work less.
Yeah, I
What do you
want
do
more
then?
time with my family or something. Yeah.
What do you do then? Right?
I will be. It depends. It depends. In my personality, I would say to the person, okay, this is what I need. It's not what you are offering me. It's just what I don't need what you're offering me. I just need this. So then it will be a discussion on that. But some people will just shut up, won't say anything, even though they find that they're giving to them a different kind of tool or a different kind of what they need. So they will just not say anything on that situation, which will be a problem.
Yeah. And they will say, well,
another problem for the leader. Yeah.
probably in their mind, they will say, well, you're not listening to me. You're
Yeah,
not
you're
paying
not listening to
attention.
me.
Yeah, if I
Exactly.
share with you that I just got married or I just bought a new house or whatever, and you're not listening, you're not taking that into account, then I'm sorry for you. And some might not want to help you to get that, right? Some might not want to help you. Some people on your team might not want to get to the trouble to help you. They expect you to see that, to hear that, to get that.
Yeah. So it's your job to have a constant feedback with your employees and say is your feedback to me, and what I can improve as a leader. So this is the first step, and then you are going to the next step with the personalized feedback. And speaking
Absolutely.
about the next steps, what I would like to let everybody know what is our plan for the next sessions, because we are going
Sure.
to some deep conversation related to the management of teams. And when you have a team or when you are forming a team, there are some dysfunctions that Patrick Lencioni mentioned in a book and in a training, a specialized training for that. And we are going to talk about each of these 5 dysfunctions of a team. And the first dysfunction will be the lack of trust, when people don't trust each other. And guess what? It's related to our feedback today. If people don't trust you, they won't accept your feedback.
Yeah,
So what
absolutely.
else is there that you would like to add, Florin?
No, I think that's great, and I'm looking forward to this series. So we're gonna go through these 5 dysfunctions, which is not our material, but it's a book that everyone can actually buy online. And even in bookshops, particularly Chinese, 5 dysfunctions of a team. You find lots of material online, but we're gonna look at what are some solutions, what are some ideas that we
Yeah.
have found work to help teams, and help leader actually deal with those, right? So we're not going to dive much deeper into Lencioni's content, but we're going to share from our experience and our content and what we have learned that are some ways that you could deal with those dysfunctions.
Yeah, perfect. Sounds a great deal for us, and
All
we
right.
are looking forward to see you each other and each other again
Absolutely. See you
next
next
time.
week. Right. Take care. Bye bye.